In the heart of Colorado, surrounded by barren desert and mountains that stretch endlessly toward the horizon, sits ADX Florence, the most secure prison in the United States. Locals call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies. It was built not just to hold prisoners, but to contain legends. No other facility on Earth has gathered so many high-profile crime leaders under one roof. Terrorists, cartel bosses, gang masterminds, and spies. Men who once controlled empires from behind walls of fear and fortune now live in concrete silence behind reinforced steel. ADX Florence was born from necessity. After decades of violence inside U.S. federal prisons, the government needed a solution, a place so impenetrable that no one could escape, no matter their resources or reputation. And so, in 1994, construction began. Every inch of the complex was designed to do one thing: control. From the outside, ADX looks like an ordinary compound. Gray walls, guard towers, a few lights blinking in the distance. But what lies beneath is a psychological labyrinth. Each inmate spends 23 hours a day inside a 7 by 12-foot cell made entirely of concrete. Even the beds, desks, and toilets are built into the walls. There are no bars, only steel doors with narrow slits for food trays. The silence isn't just part of the punishment. It is the punishment. Former wardens describe the place as a clean version of hell, a world where the toughest men in history are reduced to voices echoing through vents. Over the years, ADX has housed some of the most feared names in criminal history. Individuals whose organizations stretched across continents. Behind those walls sit cartel leaders who once commanded hundreds of men, mafia bosses whose words decided life or death, and gang figures whose influence once reached every U.S. city. But inside ADX, no one commands anything. The system is airtight. Guards never interact directly with inmates, and prisoners rarely see each other's faces. Meals arrive through automated slots. Conversations happen through tiny vents, and movement is restricted to solitary exercise cages. 1 hour a day under open skies surrounded by 20-foot walls. Every sound inside the facility is recorded. Every movement is tracked. Even the sunlight entering the cells is filtered through small upward-angle windows, so narrow that inmates can see only a slice of blue sky, but never another human being. Psychologists who have studied long-term inmates here describe the mental effects as profound. Many prisoners begin to lose sense of time. Some stop talking altogether. Others write obsessively, counting the days by hand scratches on a wall. And yet, the prison remains fully operational, cold, efficient, and unyielding. ADX Florence isn't just a building. It's a message, one that says, power ends here. And behind those reinforced doors, 15 of the most dangerous crime leaders in the world learned that even influence, fear, and loyalty mean nothing when you're trapped inside the one place built to outsmart the human mind. Inside the cold corridors of ADX Florence, time doesn't move. It stands still. For most inmates, the hours dissolve into an endless routine. Lights on at dawn, meals through a slot, 1 hour of isolated exercise, and 23 hours of silence. But for a select few, the ones who once ruled nations, empires, and syndicates, the silence hits differently. They were once untouchable. Men who commanded armies with a phone call, who could change the course of history from the back of a limousine. Now, they live in 7 by 12-foot boxes, surrounded by sensors, steel, and concrete so thick that even a whisper can't travel beyond the walls. Each of them represents a chapter of criminal history. Different origins, different ideologies, but one shared destiny. ADX Florence. There's a cartel leader whose network stretched across oceans. He once controlled billions in illegal trade. Yet here, his voice is just another echo in a concrete tomb. For years, he orchestrated chaos without leaving his mansion. Now he hasn't seen the horizon in over a decade. Then there's a mob strategist, quiet, calculating, a man who built empires with words instead of weapons. In ADX, his meetings are gone, his influence erased. The only audience he has now is the surveillance camera that never blinks. Another cell holds a domestic terror leader, once responsible for acts that shook the nation. He used to see himself as a revolutionary. Now, his revolution exists only in his memories. The endless silence of Florence is his new ideology, an existence where he's both prisoner and philosopher. And down another corridor, a foreign spy sleeps in silence. A man who once lived in shadows, manipulating governments from the inside. His secrets are worthless here. The sound of his own breath has become the only code he can still control. Every inmate in Florence's most secure block has a story, but none of them share it. They're buried alive in information, cameras, microphones, logs, and schedules. Nothing gets out, not even emotion. The guards operate with precision, trained to never personalize their work. Eye contact is brief, orders are mechanical, and empathy is rare. Some officers say the prison feels like it watches them as much as they watch the prisoners. Psychologists who monitor the population describe an invisible hierarchy, not of violence, but of silence. The longer an inmate lasts without breaking down, the more power he holds over himself. Inside ADX, the greatest weapon isn't a blade or a gun. It's the ability to endure your own mind. For the 15 men locked inside its most secure tier, that endurance has become their new empire. They trade not in currency, but in control. Over thoughts, over time, over what little remains of their humanity. One guard once said, "It's like watching kings live as ghosts. They walk with pride, but talk to no one." As years pass, their names fade from the news. Their crimes become history lessons. But inside Florence, their legends still breathe, buried beneath the hum of fluorescent lights and the mechanical hiss of doors that never fully close. And yet, something else lingers in those halls, a quiet fear that the system, despite its perfection, still belongs to the very men it was built to contain. Because for all its control, ADX Florence has one weakness. It can trap the body, but never truly cage the legacy. Their influence might be silent now, but their shadows, the memory of what they were, stretch far beyond those concrete walls. There's a saying among federal officers, Florence doesn't rehabilitate, it erases. And in many ways, that's true. By the time the sun rises over Colorado mountains each morning, ADX Florence is already awake, not alive, just awake. Its design doesn't allow chaos or emotion. Everything here is predictable. Lights at 6, meals at 7, silence by 8. It's a clockwork fortress built to dismantle the human spirit one routine at a time. For the men inside, days become indistinguishable. Weeks blur into months. Time itself stops being a measure. It becomes a test. These are men who once defined power. Cartel leaders who commanded nations, mob figures who ran cities, and terror masterminds whose names made headlines across the world. Yet, within these walls, their empires have vanished. What remains are echoes, faded memories of dominance dissolving in the cold air of a 7 by 12 cell. Every sound inside Florence is monitored. Every step is calculated. Even the brief moments outside, in the so-called recreation area, are spent alone, in a concrete pit where the sky is visible only through a narrow grate above. To survive here, you don't fight others. You fight yourself. Some inmates find solace in repetition, exercising until exhaustion. Others find comfort in writing letters they'll never send. A few simply stare at the tiny patch of sky, day after day, watching clouds drift by like reminders of a world that no longer belongs to them. For the guards, ADX is no less demanding. The turnover is high. The silence wears on them too. Officers have described the eerie stillness as something that follows you home. Even after leaving the facility, they say the quiet lingers, the sound of steel doors and distant echoes haunting their sleep. But ADX Florence endures because it has to. It's not just a prison, it's a statement. A symbol that the system can contain anyone, no matter how dangerous or powerful they once were. Yet, beneath that perfection lies a truth that few acknowledge. The longer the system holds these men, the more they fade from public consciousness. Their legacies dissolve, their followers scatter, and their fear loses power. In that sense, the prison succeeds. But in another, it fails. Because some believe ADX doesn't destroy monsters. It creates ghosts. Ghosts of ambition. Ghosts of control. Ghosts of men who once defined chaos, now swallowed by the silence they once thought they could command. One former warden described walking the main corridor late one night, stopping outside the high-security wing. "You don't hear anything," he said. "No yelling, no movement. just the building breathing. You realize the quiet isn't peace. It's the sound of power dying slowly. To this day, ADX Florence stands as the most secure facility in the United States, a monument to isolation and a mirror reflecting the limits of